Welcome to Inside the Skev, and I'm your host, Aaron Masliansky. Today, I am so happy to be sitting down here with Dr. Jane Shapiro. Jane is a Skevinston resident. She grew up in Evanston. She's got a lot of history to this area. She's been really, really active in Jewish education throughout her career, and we're going to hear about that. But I just want to welcome everybody and welcome you, Jane, to the show.
Thank you so much. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for taking the time. And, we have a special connection, I feel like, because, first of all, I'm very good friends with your son, Jacob, and we've known each other for, I don't know, God knows how many years. But you always tell me how I remind you of your father, because your father was in real estate for many years. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so I grew up in Evanston, and my father, who went to Northwestern University, he was one of those people who got the GI Bill, so he was able to come to Evanston and go to Northwestern, where he met my mom. My mom said that she was one of the first class of women coming back to the GI Bill, so there were 9 women for every man in her class at Northwestern, and she met my dad, and they decided to settle back in Evanston after they were married, and my father went into the real estate business called Sherwin Realty, largely did a lot of work in South Evanston, which is where I grew up, but he spent his whole life and career really working to benefit the Evanston community, different institutions. He was very active on the real estate board, teaching about the realtors in his company and about fair practices in real estate. And there was nothing he liked better than helping people find a home. He thought that was one of the most stressful but important things he could do for people, and help them find homes. And he was just a huge Evanston booster. And I grew up as a big Evanstonian, and now Skevinstonian. One of our favorite family activities would be driving around and looking at neighborhoods in Chicago, and different ethnic neighborhoods in different places, and every so often driving up Sheridan Road just to look at the real estate. And so it was always a Sunday afternoon when we drive around and look at property, just to really, I think, appreciate where people lived, how people lived, and just the diversity of the city of Chicago. So I got that from my dad. So.
Yeah, I think I'm guilty of doing that to my children, for sure.
Yeah, it's all right.
And he was the head of the realtor board, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was the head of the real estate board, the North Shore Real Estate Board for a time, and was also involved in the Chicago Real Estate Board because he did some work in Rogers Park also. He was involved with some of the founding, I think, significant realty families. There were a few core families that each had companies in Evanston, and he was part of that community. What I most remember I was really happy about with my dad is when there were, in Evanston, when real issues of covenants and neighborhoods that were earmarked that people wouldn't sell, or different realtors. That
redlining.
He was very active pushing back against that, and not participating in that, and trying to make Evanston an inclusive, open, fair city. And it's one of the things about my dad. I think he really lived his values as a Jewish person, that he did not participate in that, and was advocating that Evanston should be a place for everybody to live and be able to purchase a house. So, yeah.
Well, that tide has definitely turned in his direction, I think, and he must have influenced you quite a bit.
Oh, my father was a huge influence on me on a lot of different ways. I guess just as the first thing I remember him saying a lot is, nobody at the end of their life would ever be accused of being too generous.
Right.
And that really, he was a huge personality, but generosity was really an important value to him. I mean, family, community were important, but he was generous with his time with people. He was generous with his resources to people, but he just also thought that the way to approach the world is feeling like there's enough, I have enough to and everyone should feel that someone is being kind and good to them, and that was the way he walked through the world. And he was a big influence on me in that way. Just, how you interact with people every day is not from a feeling of scarcity, and if I have something, I don't have something, you might have it, and creating walls between people. It's just to really greet people with a sense of the world has enough bounty for all of us, and how can I help you? So,
right, it's not a zero-sum game by any means.
No,
There's always, I think, by making those types of connections and opening up things for other people. It's a net benefit to all.
Yeah. So you mentioned my son, Jacob. So I have very clear memory of my father coming home when he first started his business. And he worked out of the house. He was a trendsetter in that way. Before he opened an office, he worked from home.
Yeah, he was way ahead of his time.
Yeah, way. But he came home one Sunday and said, here, and he handed a baby to me. I must have been about 6 or 7 years old, and said, take care of this baby. I'm going to show his parents a house around the corner. And he has a big sister, and she's going to be your friend and a friend to my younger sister. They were the same age, and I'm going to sell them a house. And so sold a house to a family named the Black family, and the daughter in that family grew up to be Nina Black, and when she grew up, had a daughter who's now married to my son. So our roots in Evanston go deep, and
it is such a strong connection. It was probably like one of your dreams come true, huh?
It was definitely a dream come true. It was yes.
And now they're Skevinston residents.
Yeah, now they're Skevinston residents, and that's how I met you, is through my
That's
son.
right.
So yeah.
And so are Nina and Avery. So
Yes,
it's great how the community stays together.
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
beautiful. But what got you into education? What in Jewish education specifically?
So I'm one of these people, I would actually really say that I had a calling to become a teacher and to specifically to be a Jewish educator. I can't even, I remember as a child really having an awareness that I was wanted to benefit my Jewish community by teaching. I thought about becoming a rabbi, and I thought, that's not what I really want to do. I really like to teach. I want to say omnivorous learner. I like to read all kinds of things, and I like to study. And that was an access point for me into the Jewish wisdom tradition in all its different forms. And my parents sent me to summer camp where I learned Hebrew, and I spent some time in Israel, so I learned Hebrew, and always was really intellectually curious about Jewish education, about Jewish topics. And I found that I love to teach. I love to share, not just share what I know, what's in my head, but to me, education is really one of the basic acts of interconnection between human beings.
Sure.
About sharing ideas and learning and opening each other's minds up into, why don't I tell you what I'm thinking about, what are you thinking about, or as we puzzle through something together, or enjoy a piece of writing together, or think about how this text or this idea might be meaningful in our lives. It's the interactions between people that, to me, are really just extraordinary. I guess in that way you asked me about if I'm like my dad, but if my dad liked to find homes for people, for me, what's important about Jewish education is to offer people a home. Can I find you a home in your Jewish tradition? Because most of my students, not all, but most of my students are Jewish people trying to kind of find a home inside their tradition in a way that is authentic to them, or meaningful to them, or is inspiring to them.
Sure.
And I feel like my job as a teacher is to help them find their home. It's very much not dogma that I want to make them think a certain way. I don't really believe in that kind of teaching. Mm-hmm. And I just continue. I've been in the classroom teaching adults, because I actually ended up as an adult educator, but I've been teaching adults classes for nonstop for 36 years.
36 years,
yeah,
wow.
Week in and week out. I have some classes that have met every week for 16, 17 years, and so I'm really the beneficiary of being with them over a huge arc of their life and being a part of it. So,
but you also were involved in at Ramah in developing their curriculum. So that was working with children. So how is it different working, on something with children versus why you've tended to decide to work with adults?
Yeah, a lot of the work that I did at summer camp is I taught high school age campers, but I did a lot of work with the teachers, helping them also think about, it's not about how smart you are, it's how much you get the kids to engage in the learning. So that's always been a lot of my focus, is pedagogy. I got involved in adults in an odd way. We had just moved back to Chicago, and I was at someone's house for lunch, someone whom I had known when I lived in Ann Arbor, Michigan, where my husband did his medical residency. And this woman was saying, like, what are you going to, are you thinking about working when you move? And I go, yeah, I'm kind of thinking I'm ready to go back to work and do some teaching or something. And she directed me to a program at the JCC of adult literacy, adult Jewish literacy. And she said, why don't you, go talk to the person in charge of that program? Maybe they'll find a job for you to do some teaching there, because I had been a first grade teacher when I lived in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
And she said, why don't you talk to the head of this program? Maybe they'll find a job for you in adult education. And the irony of that story is that woman who directed me to my career as an adult educator is the mother of one of my other daughters-in-law. So I have family connection to her also. So fate has put me in places where my future daughters-in-law happen to be. It's kind of funny. So I hadn't didn't train to be an adult educator. I just started doing it. It's one of those things where, like many crafts, the more you practice something and do something and then think about what you're doing and learn about it, the more you get curious, not just about what you're doing, but the art form of doing it. And so I've always been really lucky, and because I had adult students for a long time, that I could really sort of track or kind of follow along, about their development and growth. And I kind of just entered the whole world of what adult learners need in this world today, what their experiences are like. When adults who have full lives, they can tell you about moments when they're learning, which is different than children. Those are all things that are really
They've
different.
had the experience.
Yeah, right. You can look at a 9-year-old and say, like, oh, something just went into them and stuff, but adults have the capacity to just be reflective at a different level. And you don't have to wait for 40 years to see how it impacted their lives, because they'll also say, I've had couples, I had couples in my class, and one came to me afterwards and said, you changed our marriage. And I went like, what? Whoa, what's going on? Whoa. I go like, well, I wasn't intending to do that. I go like, what do you mean? Like, well, most of the time we talk about who's picking up the kids or who's taking the garbage out of the grocery store, but we would come to your class, and in the car on the way home, it was the only time in the week that we could talk about ideas of meaning and purpose, and we could share that with each other. And we didn't have any other time in our lives when we could do that. And so it really made a difference in our marriage and our relationship. So I said, okay, I'll take it. So there's many things about adults. They can, and it isn't just that they think on a higher level or they bring their life experiences into it, is that they really will bring back all the ways wisdom, and really in all its forms. It can be just things they've read, things they've thought about. Is they can really talk about where they see it someplace else in their life. Like they could be in the grocery store and suddenly remember, like, whoa, I learned something about this in my interactions with other people. If we were studying ethics, or if I do a lot of singing when I teach. I like to use a lot of my
little
teaching.
different.
I do art and music, and I like to sing to my students and teach them to sing. And so sometimes they'll go like, I went home and I taught that song to my children, and we had this one, So it's very rewarding to kind of see how the work that you do gets infused out, not just into individual learners, but to their families. One of the things I like to do in my teaching is paired learning in Jewish education. We talk a lot about paired learning, where you will ask people to work with somebody and really ask questions and work through and really listen actively to what the other person is saying, and not say, well, I disagree, but say, I think that this is how you're understanding something. Here's how I understand it. What more questions do we have? So it's a fairly sophisticated form of dialogue. Mm-hmm. And I've had students who come home and say, I went home and I went to my business partner. She's not Jewish, but I said, could we talk like that with each other? Could we look at this problem together and do? It's called, the word for it is chavruta, which comes from the word for friend, deep friendship. So she said, I went to my partner and said, could we do chavruta together about a particular thing? In our business, they were entrepreneurs actually, growing a business. So there are surprises everywhere in terms of how people take what we did in class into their lives.
Yeah.
And that's super rewarding. It's super rewarding.
It's super rewarding, and I think maybe one of the other differences between working with adults and children is that a lot of times the adults are coming there because they want to be there, and with children they may be sent to school, and that's where they're at. So You have done. You've done things with Florence Melton, for adult education, and then you started you've started some of your own organizations, Colsa Stone Congregation and Orot.
Yeah.
So why did you feel the need to create these other institutions, and how are they different?
First of all, I guess I would say I really like the entrepreneurial world. I like being around entrepreneurs because they're like risk takers and creative and a little bit of fly by the seat of their pants, and they go like, let's try something out and do it. And so that kind of spirit I like very much. I think my father was an entrepreneur. He started a business, but the one who really inspired me to think about not going the pathway of working in a typical institution as a teacher. I have taught in schools and I have taught in synagogues and organizations, but the one who inspired me the most is Florence Melton, who was the woman who created that first adult literacy program that I taught in. And she was a really interesting woman. When I met her, she was already in her 80s. She was from Columbus, Ohio, and Florence was a businesswoman and an entrepreneur. If any of the listeners have ever worn deer foam bedroom slippers, that was Florence Melton. She created all kinds of things with foam. So when deer foam bedroom slippers weren't selling so well, she invented shoulder pads that could go in and out of your clothes. And then when
that's
they
where
went
we get them?
Yeah, and so that was Florence. And then when it went out of style, she said, what am I going to do with all this foam? So it was she who invented the boxes that keep pizza hot.
Really?
And the things that you put in the microwave, that like the things that heat up like heating pads, those are all her inventions.
Oh, wow.
And so Florence was looking around. So she just had this, she was this clear-eyed, amazing woman, and it was she who decided that there was no place for adults in the 1980s. She came up with the idea in the late 70s, and then in the 80s is when she actualized it. She said, there's no place for adults to learn about Judaism in a way that's not, here's what we want you to do, and shame on you if you're not doing it, or there's the one way to do things, a kind of prescriptive approach. And she said people need a respectful way to come and have teachers and have a curriculum and have a mini school where they could learn about their own Jewish heritage on their own terms.
Yeah.
So she invested and she created this program, and she went all over the country, and all these institutions of higher learning, of Jewish higher learning, so like, adult Jews, they're not interested in learning. They don't care about that stuff. So she ended up actually at the Hebrew University, where her husband was a significant donor, so they couldn't turn her down.
Yeah.
And so they created this program, and I was actually fortunate because one of the 3 pilot sites of this program was in Chicago. And so when I started working at the JCC in 1986, it was the first year we started. So I got sort of on the ground floor in this program. So Florence, and her thought about this was, if you're going to do education, you have to do it from a business-like way with professional standards, and you hire people and you pay them, and people pay for this. It's not some free thing that people would listen to and ignore.
Yeah.
And so I just learned from her that having a sense of business mindset about educational work was a way to assure quality in a way that certainly in the rest of the Jewish communities, you can't, it's not always there. And so she really inspired me. And plus she was an amazing woman. She also was a practitioner of yoga starting in the 1950s. And she said it kept her nimble and her brain clear, and she was, until she was 90 years old, she was just, she kind of just tucked her feet into her bed and said, I'm done here, I've done everything. So she was a huge inspiration to me about entrepreneurial education and how you can control the quality, how you can adapt when you want to change things and say like, well, I've been teaching this course, but here's where I see my learners are going now, and how can I adapt to the marketplace, or what people need now is different than what they might have needed as learners, and to be able to always be dynamic in your work. I feel as if by creating my own institutions, I could control that much more than saying like, we've always done it this way, it's a tradition. Especially when I'm teaching things sometimes that are 500, 1,000, 2,000 years old. You
how to
could
keep
really
it fresh.
be fixed. Yeah, how to keep it fresh. So that's, to me, the being able to control that. It's just, I think it's helped me serve my learners better in that way.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our supporters. When I need support with Apple products, I call Lapin Systems. Lapin is the SCEV's most experienced Apple certified specialist. They've been around since 1995, so they know what they're doing. They have convenient locations in Evanston, Lincoln Park, and can meet you anywhere in the Chicagoland area. Lappin is your best choice for repairs, networks, upgrades, and so much more. Skip the hassle of the Apple Store and call them at 312-328-9945 or visit their website, lappin.com. That's LAPIN.com. Mention Inside the Skev for 10% off all approved labor charges.
Moving day is a happy day, but how can you be sure all of your stuff will get to the new place in the same condition they left the old place? Upgrade your experience to first-class moving and storage. You'll get a team of professionals who treat all of your belongings with care and have the right tools to make the job go smoothly. They even offer a full packing service. Upgrade to first-class moving and storage. They're local and independently owned. For more info, visit the website at firstclassmovers.com. That's the number one, stclassmovers.com.
Hi, I'm Aaron Masliansky, longtime Skokie and Evanston resident, host of Inside the Skev, and local real estate expert. As a community connector and realtor with Dreamtown Realty in downtown Evanston, I know firsthand what makes the Skev such an amazing place to live. When I'm helping my clients buy and sell properties inside of the Skev or out, I'm doing it with the best technology and support team behind me at Dreamtown. During the pandemic, I've been able to help my clients seamlessly stay on track with their home search, from immersive 3D Matterport tours, professional photos, to virtual open houses. My clients can find their homes safely and comfortably, and even from their couch. When you're ready to make a move, know that I'll be here to help. You can always find out more about me at skevinston.com/real estate. Again, that's skevinston.com/real estate, or email me at aaron@skevinston.com. So with Orot, you incorporate a lot of these different things that you've learned over the course of your career. And tell us a little bit about that. Like, what are some of the offerings that you have?
Yeah, so Orot started, can I give a shout out to my partner in Orot?
Yeah, of course.
I have an
shout out whoever you like.
amazing colleague named Rebecca Minkus-Lieberman, also grew up in Skokie, not from Skevinston, but close. So she's a lifelong Skokie person. She was a colleague of mine. We were teaching together. She's a very talented teacher. And she came to me and she said, Jane, there's nothing creative going on with Jewish education in Chicago. There's stuff happening in California, and there's stuff happening in New York. There's nothing like really creative. She said, people are accessing, they're going to yoga for spiritual life, or they're going to meditation or art. There's all these people who are accessing inspiring things in their lives, and they don't realize that Judaism is also a container for that they could express themselves and learn about their own heritage and tradition. If we could just open some portals into, open some windows, they go like, whoa, I didn't know Judaism. I could also do mindfulness meditation and learn about Judaism. So she was just talking about her vision about opening portals to people and how to do this, and I just looked at her and go, let's just start it.
Right, if it doesn't exist.
Right, if it doesn't exist, inspired by Florence Melton, I just said, let's just do it. And so that's what happened. We're going to have our 8th anniversary this summer that we've been operating.
Wow.
And we've had thousands of people come through our programs now. And we don't have a podcast, but we do all kinds of, a lot of the work we do is really, is to set a paradigm for new forms of adult Jewish learning, is that we really think of ourselves as thought leaders. We've been trying out this work, reaching people who were big, never came to anything Jewish in their lives, but they went to yoga, but they never thought that Judaism could speak to them. So we've offered all kinds of classes and programs over these last 8 years. I teach artists, we do retreats, and mostly what we've done is that we've really solidified and focused on this kind of pedagogy. And what I'm saying to you about my ideas about what learners need. And my role as the teacher, which is not just sort of give over to them what I think they should know, but this interactions and how you bring Jewish wisdom into conversation with other wisdom traditions. It could be we use a lot of poetry in our teaching because it kind of like opens up to people to think about metaphors and imagination. And when you can imagine something in a poem, you can imagine something in an ancient text. And so we've just spent a lot of time like really kind of focusing on like how do we engage learners in a way that is helpful to them, engage their minds, engage their hearts so they get inspiration, and also give them some really concrete practices of ways they can take this into their lives. So we offer lots of different kinds of classes, but really pushing this kind of pedagogy, and are now engaged in some strategic thinking about how we can teach others about this pedagogy, because we know after 8 years that this is really reaching people in a way that prior forms of just listening to a lecture or a sermon or just reading a book, that there's something rich about what we're doing. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, it's a way to incorporate mind and body,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's different. And are you thinking that you want to like kind of franchise it out around the country or around the world?
Oh, you're ahead of me. I don't, franchising, that would be huge. Our tasks now, where we are, is we are to continue to expand our student base. This time of quarantine was, for us, in many ways, a bonus because we were at one time a local Chicago-based organization offering classes on the north side and in the city, just where people were who wanted to study. And then when we pivoted pretty quickly and started offering classes on Zoom, because Rebecca and I had both taken classes on Zoom, so we kind of thought like, oh, we can do this.
Mm-hmm.
But I had a student log in a class yesterday from New Zealand, and
Oh,
I
wow.
have people from California and all over the country now log into classes. So our base of students just grew. The potential for where we can reach people to teach them is broadened. I'm super excited about that. So that's one piece. And our other growth trajectory right now is to do some more speaking and writing and presenting about this kind of this paradigm of pedagogy, because we really believe that if more clergy or teachers thought more about their learners and helping the learners on their own spiritual developmental growth, whatever transformation or growth they want to have, if they want to be better parents or just better professionals or just feel they're growing in their lives, that we've kind of figured out how to help them do that. And so we want to put those ideas out more into the world about how are you teaching, and are you thinking about what you think, or are you thinking about what your learners think? And we can help teach you to do that. So we are thinking a lot more about sort of that kind of paradigm. And then and we want to hire more teachers. We want to sort of, which is, I think, before a franchise, because Melton had a franchise. So I think that's how the Florence Melton School operated. So I hadn't even thought about that. But we want to expand our faculty base and find people who are open to learning this pedagogy and have some skills in teaching, but want to grow and become these really, I would say, interactive, transformative teachers, and help people not just get some information, or not just have an entertaining experience, or not even just come away going like, whoa, that teacher knows so much, but a teacher who conveys to the learners that that we are all on life journeys. We're all kind of like spiritual, moral, economic. We're all growing throughout our lives, and that we want to find teachers who want to accompany people on those journeys and providing real substance and inspiration to their lives, so they don't just kind of like bump around all the time without any sense of...
Right, to be able to kind of ride the waves.
Yeah.
That's key.
Yeah.
Do you think, because you're doing stuff online, it kind of gives you a wider base of people to be able to hire, I would think. But do you have a location in the Chicagoland area, or do you travel around?
We initially thought we were going to rent a space, and then we thought, okay, this is Chicago. We're not going to get someone from Hyde Park and somebody from Highland Park to come together at Tuesday night in the winter to a place. We will never find the place that would be the right center. And so fortuitously, we did not sign any leases on any places. We looked at some and decided not to do that. And then we found, by and large, that I was doing a lot of traveling. I would teach in the city, and I would teach up north. Sometimes we teach in the Skev. So we were traveling, and what we found with Zoom is that all kinds of people who wouldn't travel to a class before were like, it's so easy for them to log in. And I'll give you one example. We have one program for young parents called Peaceful Parent. I cannot say enough, and I don't teach in the program because I'm a grandmother now. I'm too old to teach. Can't speak to that, but Rebecca is an extraordinary teacher to young parents, using techniques of mindfulness to kind of find resilience and able to kind of just feel grounded and having real practical skills for themselves, blended with Jewish sources in a way that they can be better parents. Then they can use those activities. Once they take care of themselves, they can be better parents. And so we were trying to set that up around that, and parents were saying, like, I can't get there.
Yeah.
I'm too tired. I can't get a babysitter. I can't do it. And the minute we said it's on Zoom, it's just like whoosh. People, they put their kid in bed at 7:29, or they're holding their baby that they're nursing. At 7:30, they log into class on their sofa. And it made it so much more accessible that we have been able to reach all kinds of students who would not come to our if we had a space now, my hunch is it would be empty and that we wouldn't be using. Well, now it'd be kind of nice to have a space, but for certain things. But this Zoom for us has been great. I mean, because it's really been allowed us to have the technology to extend. Like, we really want to meet you where you're at, and we want to make it most comfortable and accessible for you. So we're starting to
kind of breaks down those barriers.
Yeah, it really breaks down the barriers, and people can meet people from all over the country and do different things, and which has been really interesting. And so far, that we have a rule. We actually have, for people who do a lot of work on Zoom and know because I go to meetings, we have a rule that our class size is only one screen. So you can put 20 people on a Zoom screen. So our classes never get bigger than that, because as a teacher, I can only look at 20 faces. I can't be going back and forth between one screen and the other.
Oh, that makes a lot of
sense.
sense.
So as long as I can see everybody's faces, and because I as a teacher spend a lot of time looking at people's hand motions or eyes, because you can. I've learned, like, you can watch people and see on their faces when a thought is coming up before they even can have the words. There's all kinds of gestures, and brain science kind of backs this up. If somebody will look down and look up.
Well, I think we've all had the great experiment of that over the past 2 years with masks and everything else, and not being able to see all the facial language that comes out.
Right. So we've tried to max it so it's only one screen, so the classes have stayed intimate, but we really reach people where they're at, even in New Zealand.
I know, it's amazing.
I know.
Do you think that being a woman starting this, and Rebecca as well, gives you a different perspective of opening up a Jewish educational organization as compared to, let's say, a more traditional place that you would see that is created by more men?
I think it's still easier for more traditional. It's easier. That's a good question. Thinking about from a funding perspective, has it been easier for men? Does it continue to be easier for men to draw funding to their programs? No, I'm going to wipe that off. I don't think that's it. I guess in some ways. Maybe we're a little bit of a novelty, though there are a lot of others, women out there starting businesses now.
But in the Jewish education space, I mean, if you think like Orthodox, you think of a yeshiva, that's mostly male rabbis and whatnot. Yeah. So this is and also do you appeal to people in a wide range of denominations, I guess.
So people who
are not even Jewish, who are just interested in the Jewish spirituality.
Yeah. I do have non-Jewish students, and I welcome non-Jewish students because I think the questions that they ask and their regard for Judaism is just such a wonderful thing to have included in the classes. And I also want people, especially in today's world, to be informed about Judaism and to know Jewish people, and to be able to understand how Jews talk about themselves, and just feel like that we're not a threat, and that that we're welcoming. I would say that the yeshiva world, the people who are really attracted to male rabbis in the yeshiva world, by and large, would not find a way into Orot. Not that they're not welcome, and not that I don't think that studying with us wouldn't be worthwhile for them, or that they would feel that they're not. I think they would feel that they're intellectually challenged, even by what we do, because this is not simple stuff that we take on, nor are the texts simplistic. I use biblical texts. I use all traditional commentaries and Talmud texts and philosophical texts and Hasidic texts. So the materials we use are quite sophisticated. They're not watered down. They could find a place, but I think the desire to really explore what does this mean to me is putting more of the self in the center. In some ways, is not quite in sync with many people who study in the yeshiva environment. I would be happy to be proved wrong.
Yeah.
But I also feel like there's a huge group of people that there's all these people who never thought about Jewish wisdom. They kind of that's has nothing to say to me. There's a huge group of people for whom that's the case. People who feel in their hearts they have a sense of Jewish identity, but didn't get to access it. They want to know what that means, and they want a place to explore. And then there's tons of people who got different forms of Jewish education, whatever, but not in any coherent way that they can make sense of and use. And in some ways, that's our sweet spot of people, saying like, why didn't anybody teach me this? Or I never thought about how these things connect before. Like, oh, that Hebrew term, and then whoa. And so there's a lot of like sparks that go off in class when people are connecting the bits and pieces of information or experiences they may have had and kind of bringing that together and saying like, this is your tradition. Now, what do you want to do with this? So that's, I think, much more than is our, people who are spiritually seeking or looking for meaning in life and want to use Jewish wisdom as a way of doing that. And in some ways, I think that's just a different market. People, there's a ton of people like that out there.
There are.
So that's more people who I think find their way into Orot. But I would never discourage somebody who's had a very traditional educational background who wants to stay in that world. I would never discourage them saying like, well, this isn't for you, because I think that for all of us, if wisdom is only wise if we can make it work in our lives, if we can act on it in some way. Otherwise, It's just an encyclopedia reading. And I think that having the opportunities to go like, our ancestors, no matter what background we came from, this is the Scavin. There are people who have such ancient wisdom traditions at their back. I mean, we've all inherited thousands of years of our grandparents and great-parents, like, trying to understand life. And they left us all these treasures, in books, in prayers, in music, in recipes, in celebrations. It's
absolutely. Can't forget that. I mean, the food, the taste of the food, and bringing you back to where you were, from hundreds or thousands of years ago. I mean, that's something I've actually never really just thought about that. And it is bringing back that past, and it's that treasure.
It's your, and we talk about, I mean, there's things that say it's our inheritance or it's a treasure. So I'll say to people like, look, this is your inheritance. You want to access it, I'll help you access it. I will do everything possible. But otherwise it's going to sit there and it's your treasure. I have my own. So I just feel like so much what we're trying to do is help people go like, oh, whoa, my ancestors also thought about what is it like to live a life of meaning? What does it mean to be a good human being? Our ancestors thought about what is it like to live in a time of plague or war or, socialism. Like, we're not the first generation of people to confront these things. So why not, draw on what they knew before and how to get through life and how to make life rich and connected. So I just feel like I'm a go-between between that and kind of make that happen.
So unlocking that. I mean, and I think what you're saying is such a good point. And, you look at what's going on in the world today. I mean, we've been going through a pandemic. You have a massive war in Europe right now, in Ukraine. And, I look at the names of the towns where, things are happening and, where people are going or fleeing to, the refugees. And it's like, oh, well, my family is from there and there. And like these people, like, it's like all these things are kind of repeating themselves, and it's looking back at it and saying, okay, how did we deal with it back then? What things have we talked about for years, saying that we should have done, and now like, okay, let's do when this is happening again. And I think it's some of that wisdom, or like how learning how to get that fortitude to be able to get through it. I think is very important.
I think it's true. I have a colleague. He's a positive psychology professor at Emory University. His name is Marshall Duke. I really encourage everybody. He has a TED Talk. I really encourage people to watch him. And he has done a lot of research in resilience, especially how do children manifest resilience in difficult times. And he did a lot of research after 9/11, and because then you had a huge, global database from which to study, like, how are kids getting through this? And I feel like it's very analogous to what I hope is some of the research that's going to happen now, is like, how are kids are struggling, but how are they getting through it, and what can we learn for the next time something happens?
Sure.
And what Marshall Duke and his colleagues found is that children, and they have measurements for what resilience looks like. They can, statistically figure it out. Children, even, I think it's just such an astounding thing. He said, children who know their family stories, most specifically if they were told their family stories from their grandmothers, so I love that, if those children score higher on resilience and so he said, like, well, what is that all about? And he said, children, when they hear what's called the oscillating narrative, like, our family came to this country, we struggled, we were poor, but we worked really hard and we made it. Then was the Depression, we lost everything, but we worked really hard and we made it. And then we were able to do this, and then your grandfather was born. Kids who kind of have heard those stories, which includes like where their parents met, where their grandparents came from, what famous, and they have a list of like 20 questions, that you can ask, and that, which is just the beginning. But children who hear those stories from their ancestors get the feeling of, I may be going through a hard time right now, but I'm part of a family where it might be okay, or I'm going to be okay, and they can get through that. And there is no oscillating narrative of bigger than the Jewish story of once we were slaves and now we're free, and that we have shared that, the idea of freedom from slavery is a Jewish narrative that's been shared with the world, but it is, and we repeat it in our prayers every day, and we have a holiday around that, and we constantly are reminding ourselves of, we come from our core stories that we teach are ones of like, we were here, but we went here, and so that builds resilience, whether it's like, you think like history repeats itself, sort of, but it's not exactly the same ever, but we have tools and traditions and food to help us get through, and songs and all different kinds of techniques that are part of what we just call culture, that are also feeding us with the ability to get through times that just feel so much more difficult, and that will be okay. And most of that is just our inheritance. It's our treasures that we can grab at, or just go like, I never thought about that before, and there it is right there in front of me, and it's mine. And then somebody say like, okay, how can I help you access it and use it? So
that's what you guys are doing. It's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And, like I mentioned, you have all different types of classes. You have, the Peaceful Parenting Project. You have consulting for different organizations if you're looking to get into it as well. And then the whole calendar. Best place for people to find out more. www.orotcenter.org. You can, all the information, our classes for this year are winding down now for the summer, but we will start posting things in the beginning of August of our fall calendar of offerings. We also, if you are interested, you can subscribe to a weekly piece. Every Friday we write something about the weekly portion from the Torah that we read in synagogue on Shabbat morning, on Saturday mornings. But they're usually about this kind of idea, like here's an idea from the Torah, and here's how I see it in life, and how might you think about that? There'll always be questions or things, but they're very open, kind of spiritual reads. They're short, one page, and you can certainly subscribe to that, and you'll start getting them in your email box, and then calendar notifications of our classes for next year. So. Well, I am subscribed. I have been subscribed for a while, and it's inspirational, and especially over the past couple of years, it's been needed, and it's a nice way to participate within Orot, at least just to start.
Yeah.
I would recommend if you're interested that you sign up, but. Jane, I could probably talk to you for another couple hours. There's so much to talk about, but this, what you have done in your career has been fantastic. And, I think you've inspired many, many people and brought people back to their spirituality or found their spirituality, which is amazing. So
Yeah.
thank you from
Thank you,
the
Aaron.
entire community.
Thank you, Aaron. I love talking to you. I love the SCAV. I love this podcast. I love that you're doing this for the community. And I wake up every day very grateful for the job that I have and that I get to do this. And I don't take it for granted. So
Well, it is awesome. I'm glad that you do. And thank you. And thank you, everyone, for listening.
thank